back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad that you're joining us again this week. We're glad that there are people like you out in the audience that are interested in the issues that are happening in our cities. Because it is important for good government, for there to be a flow of information back and forth from the people that live in the cities and with the mayors and the city council people and with the city staff. So we're glad that you're interested in issues. And we're particularly glad that you're tuning in this time of year because it's our election season again. We're getting down to the end, and we're glad that you're gathering information on the people that are running for our city councils and for our mayors. So we'll encourage you to take down the names, the phone numbers, the emails of the people, particularly if you live in Brooklyn Center or Brooklyn Park tonight, so that it'll help gather a little more information for you to use in deciding who you're going to vote for. And we're very happy tonight to have Mayor Tim Willson from Brooklyn Center and to have Joy Stevens from Brooklyn Park.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. We're glad to have you here. And I'll start out with Tim Willson and have him introduce himself out to our wider audience, but also most particularly to the people in Brooklyn Center who might not know him.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Juanita, for putting this on. I know you run a good show. We've done many of them before.
Yes, we have.
And it's always a pleasure to be here and to visit with you. And certainly let the people in Brooklyn Center know a few things that are going on in Brooklyn Center. So my name's Tim Willson. I've been the mayor of Brooklyn Center for the last 8 years, 2 terms, and I'm running again this year for another 4 years. I'm looking very much forward to this election and serving another 4 years. You know, there's so many things in the city that we have started, certainly with redevelopment and some of those issues, and they take so much time to come to fruition that I just don't think we're done yet, and I'm willing to serve a few more years to make things happen.
Right.
So.
And then I ask both of you to think about the issues that are important in your city now that the voters should know something about. And I'll start with Tim again to talk about some of the issues that you think have some priorities right now and that people should know more about them.
Yeah, well, the City Council has a number of initiatives that they've looked at in the last few years. We generally have a retreat the first part of the year if there's new council people coming on, and reaffirm them goals and expectations that we want out of staff.
Right.
So redevelopment is very high on our list. You may have noticed there's quite a bit of redevelopment going on in Brooklyn Center. The FBI building came in, was redeveloped on property that the city had. We were able to offer that to them, which really brought them in to build it. They have paid their first taxes this year, and the city's share alone is $425,000.
Wow, that's a big help.
For Brooklyn Center, that's a huge help. Our whole discretionary fund, general fund, that the council has is about $2.5 million. So that's a significant amount of money.
Right.
The whole budget itself is $18 million, but police officers, services, and all those things come out of there first. So redevelopment is very important to us. We have a number of sites that have redeveloped. We worked very hard with the redeveloper in the Shingle Creek crossings. That used to be Brookdale. And that whole area now has redeveloped and is still redeveloping. They're still building in there. It's been very successful. We've had a lot of new businesses come in. We've rejuvenated that whole area. And we've worked closely with that developer to make sure we had amenities as well on that site. And some of those are being able to walk from building to building. More of a livable community rather than people have to get in their cars and go to each one of those sites. Now, there is a strategy for that because farther north, people might remember there used to be a Ford dealership. And the city owns that. We now, as the city, own that whole 32 acres. And we're looking to redevelop that whole area north of that. and mixed uses, livable community. The walkable part will be farther north, and that'll be a great amenity when that's redeveloped as well. Pep Boys and Ocean's Buffet.
Yep, I know that.
Yep, are the two buildings that will stay.
Oh,
Everything else is going to be deconstructed and prepared for redevelopment. We have a firm currently out studying the site and studying the area as well to say what would be the best to build in there. You know, whether or not it would be business, office towers, elderly housing, higher upscale housing, or a mixture. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a mixture of things. And so we're very excited about that. If you recall, that's been called the opportunity site for the last 12 years or 20 years or so. And it's finally beginning to take some shape. In 1992, I was first appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission and served as its chair for about 12 years through there. And that was one of the things we always talked about, was the opportunity site and how we were going to make that redevelopment happen. I've spent 8 years as well on the Charter Commission for the City of Brooklyn Center. So I've been real active in city politics. And I plan on continuing to be active in city politics. And this is an election year, so I certainly ask for people to vote for Tim Willson. And if you ever have to spell it, Willson has 2 L's.
I know.
It often is spelled wrong when people are doing email and pieces. So.
And then, are there issues other than redevelopment that your voters should know about?
Oh, thank you. Yes, there is. Crime, in and of itself, we've had 2 very good police chiefs through the last 8 years, and crime is down 40% across the whole city. And in some neighborhoods, much more than that. It's the lowest it's been in a decade. And I like to say that the mayor sets policy, the mayor and council, and we have, but it takes a really good department to implement. And they have implemented community policing. They have implemented better relationships with the individuals of diversity that are in our city. We have a fairly large immigrant population from Liberia, and we have many other ethnic backgrounds as well. But I'm going to mention Liberia because we now have a sister city relationship with Banjama in Lofa County, which is way to the west in Liberia. Happens to border Guinea. And Guinea is where the Ebola outbreak started. So they think that outbreak started in December with a young person just in Guinea, the other side of the line. And we were there. We self-funded it. The mayor paid for his own trip, the city manager and everybody else, so it didn't cost the city anything. But we were there in January, mid-January. So I kind of look back on that and go, you know, either I'm very lucky or very blessed, one of the two. It certainly could have turned out much different. So, but we have been working very hard with the librarian community here. Decante Kofa, I think is what her last name is now. She has started an organization to start sending aid to Liberia. And I just read where she had sent 103 tons of supplies to Liberia, like gowns, gloves, and masks.
What they need
protection.
Right now.
Absolutely. And they also sent food packets as well. About 3 weeks ago or so, I was at the White House. I was invited to the White House for something a little different in Recovery Month. And I'm a recovering individual as well. This spring will be 30 years. And of course, they wanted me to relate the story of my daughter and how all that happened here in Brooklyn Center. But while I was there, I was able to talk to Obama's executive director for that office. And I mentioned to him that I was very pleased that the United States at that time was sending 3,000 individuals to Liberia to help military doctors and nurses and things to help with the Ebola outbreak. And now I've seen where Senator Klobuchar has been saying they're going to send another 1,000. Well, and you know, I've talked to a number of people in the Liberian community, you know, and they're telling me it's just a plane flight away. Yeah. And they're right. So, but anyway, Brooklyn Center is going through a change, not only with diversity. White Caucasians like myself now are in the minority, about 47 or 48% due to the last census, which is fine. That's the way it goes. But we're also seeing where a number of houses are turning over. Young people are coming in, they're raising families, and they're bringing children in as well. So it's that whole cycle of a city where it builds up, gets to a point where everybody kind of retires and raised all their families and stuff, and now it's starting to rejuvenate with younger people again. So it's pretty exciting to see. So.
And then can you tell us something that you're hearing from the people that you're door knocking?
Yeah, one of the comments that has really struck me when I'm door knocking is that we put a rental ordinance in place a few years ago, and it's strict. We make everybody follow it. It keeps our housing stock in good shape. It keeps the rental properties in good shape. It makes for safe rental properties. There's a lot of things that it does for us. But one of the things that I have heard from residents is that, you know, that apartment complex down the street, that looks a lot better. You know, they've done some work to it. And we have an individual in town who now has 5, maybe 6 apartment complexes. And he has gone in to those complexes and rejuvenated them. All of them. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of expense. But he's been very willing to do so. We encourage him to do so. And we help him out where he can. So I'm feeling very fortunate to have somebody in our city that is that dedicated to our city that will work in that area for us. So.
And then to make sure you have enough time to tell people out in Brooklyn Center why they should vote for you when they go into the voting booth.
Sure. Well, I haven't got one foot in the grave yet, so I think I'm still going hard. But I do think there's a lot of work yet to do in Brooklyn Center. I think under my administration we have demonstrated some very good things in redevelopment and crime, in housing, all of those things that we have addressed. And I would like to see that continue. That's kind of my focus for running again for re-election as the mayor of Brooklyn Center. I'm amazed at how much time it takes to get a redevelopment effort off the ground and actually get a building in. Like the FBI building, or even in the Brookdale site. It literally was 4 or 5 years. You know, of planning, of getting funding, getting a developer, and then actually seeing something happen. So we have other areas in our city that we are underutilized. We're working very hard at having those redeveloped as well. But while I'm here, I have to mention one other business in Brooklyn Center as well, and that's the Luther organization. They started with one dealership on Brooklyn Boulevard there. They now have 5. And we have worked very closely with them, encouraged them to come in. At one time, very early on in the relationship, we had recognized Mr. Luther, David Luther, and honored him with a plaque and some of those things. And his comment was, you know, no other city has ever done that for me. So they've been very helpful with it.
That would be a good help. And first, I'll let you introduce yourself out to our wider audience.
Sure. Joy Marsh Stevens. I am running for mayor of Brooklyn Park. I have lived in the city for 16 years. I'm married. I have 4 kids. My youngest is a high school junior at Park Center, and the other three have all graduated from high school and are off in college. But made the decision to move to Brooklyn Park 16 years ago because I wanted to live in a community that was diverse, where my kids could grow up kind of feeling like they were part of what the rest of the world looks like, but also live in a community where I felt like I could get a good house for good money with a nice plot of land, and have lived in the city in a very nice community for a very long time. There's lots of really great things about Brooklyn Park, and many people find that they have a good quality of life there. However, in the years that I've spent as a community organizer in Brooklyn Park, I've also heard many other stories from residents about a very different type of Brooklyn Park and real opportunities for us to grow our city in a way that helps us live up to our status as the 6th largest city in the state. Seeing other communities around us, including Brooklyn Center, as Mayor Willson referenced, that are growing with an economic development and amenities on a scale that is really outpacing the city of Brooklyn Park. And for residents feeling like, you know, we spend a lot of money to live here. It's a premium from a property tax standpoint to live in Brooklyn Park, and not to have the level of amenities that make it worthwhile tends to rub some voters the wrong way in the conversations that I've had. So those issues, along with just the growing divide that continues to exist inside of Brooklyn Park, both geographically and racially and economically, and really seeing that we have a real opportunity to have the type of vision that moves the entire city forward, to close that divide, create space for everybody to feel like they have a voice in the decision-making process, and really have leadership more reflective of the community that we're serving.
And I'll have you spend a little time talking about some of the issues that you see happening in your city, particularly the ones that you wish voters knew a little bit more about, and then what you might want to do about them.
You know, what I find actually, you know, kind of the issues that I want voters to know more about is that we have some pretty informed voters. And when I think about the issues that are most prevalent, or the issues that people share with me when I'm out knocking on doors, and we're on the phones talking to people, or just out and about at the grocery store, oftentimes finding myself in conversations and hearing many common themes across voters about their experiences in the city of Brooklyn Park. Again, lots of things to celebrate as residents of Brooklyn Park, but also many of the needs for opportunities and continued growth. And so as I'm talking with them and hearing people talk about the need for us to expand our economic footprint, in the sense of having more retail, having more opportunities to spend our money in the city of Brooklyn Park, as opposed to needing to go to Maple Grove or Brooklyn Center or some other neighboring community in order to shop. Desires for people to, or the struggles that many homeowners like myself are facing with our property taxes that continue to go up every single year, and property tax levies that continue to go up every single year, without really seeing the return on the investment from an amenity standpoint or the services standpoint from the city of Brooklyn Park. Residents will talk about really wanting to feel a deeper level of engagement and a connectivity with their elected officials, and so wanting to find more ways to have greater transparency in our leadership, but also having more responsive and receptive leadership when challenges arise. But overall, like I said, that there are lots of things that we can celebrate about Brooklyn Park, but also many opportunities for us to dig a little bit deeper and think about an expanded vision for who we can be as a city.
You mentioned that people are wanting more amenities and services. What kinds of things are people wanting to see in your community that aren't there now, or there aren't enough of them?
Well, oftentimes we'll talk about things like voters will talk about, you know, their home, basically they feel as if it's sitting in the middle of an office park. There's lots of manufacturing, there's lots of corporate development in town, but not enough of the places and spaces where people want to go and spend their money. We, similar to the points that Mayor Willson made about Brooklyn Center, we have a lot of younger families that are coming. They're coming to work in some of those jobs that are coming into the city or some other neighboring communities, or taking advantage of some of the residential development in Brooklyn Park. Yet they're finding, as they move out of the urban core into Brooklyn Park, that we don't have the same quantity of retail places or restaurants or entertainment venues, and folks feeling like, I want to have more of that type of an experience where I live, so that it's not, so the Brooklyn Park can wake up from being this sleepy bedroom community and actually be the sort of livable city where people can actually live every single day. At the same time, we have an older population of residents as well, and who are looking for the city to kind of grow along with as they get older and really address some of the challenges that they're finding in mobility and getting around. So talking about opportunities like Botno Light Rail Transit and being able to invest in transit infrastructure in a way that helps all residents of Brooklyn Park move about, helps us to make Brooklyn Park more of a destination city that's easier to get to, and helps to further invest in our economic development opportunities that we do have, our small businesses that are on the south part of the city.
Are there specific things you'd like the city to do that would help make that occur?
Well, one of the things I think the city can do that we haven't done is it's actually build an economic development plan that includes developing the south end of Brooklyn Park. We recently, the city recently released their Business Forward Initiative plan, which does really great things to talk about what we'll do along the 610 corridor, which is important. It's a prime piece of real estate and important for us as a city to take advantage of that and attract large corporations. But at the same time, we can't forget the fact that the largest portion of Brooklyn Park is an older community. Much of it was built many, many years ago, decades ago, and we can't overlook the need to invest our dollars in our planning and helping those businesses also be strong. Like Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park has a very large immigrant community, and for many immigrants, the pathway to prosperity for them is not going to be that job at Target Corporation or that job at Baxter. It's going to be their own business, and we need to make sure that we're developing the parts of the city where those businesses exist, creating opportunity for people to access those businesses through transit expansion, and making sure that those communities are as pristine as they can be, so that the people do want to come there and support those businesses.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes that you've probably seen over the 17 years that you've lived in the city, right?
Oh my goodness, it's dramatically different than it was when my family first moved there. Even the street that I live on, when I bought my house, most of the people that lived on that street had built those houses back in the 70s, and they had raised their kids there. And so I was the new kid on the block, but now 16 years later, my community is much more diverse, the little cul-de-sac that I live on, and we have a blend of those people who had built their houses and people who are renters, and some people who have joined the community since I moved in.
Now, you said that you were a community organizer?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and how that relates to, being an elected official.
Sure, absolutely. I've spent the last 5 years working. I'm on the board of directors of an organization called Isaiah.
Okay.
And Isaiah is a statewide collaborative of faith-based institutions, and we work on racial and economic equity. That work is all nonpartisan work, building relationships as people of faith with our elected officials at the local level, at the state level, sometimes at the national level through our affiliate organizations, in order to create the sort of legislation that helps to address social justice issues on a variety of subjects. Some of the areas where I've been most active have been on corporate responsibility. So how do we hold corporations accountable who receive our tax dollars? On education, to ensure that all of our kids have an opportunity to have the most successful educational experiences possible, and all of them are able to leave school prepared to enter into a 21st century workforce. Speaking out on issues like fair housing, and making sure that as suburbs and as the Met Council, for instance, that we're all doing our part to ensure that we have fair housing available in all corners of the metropolitan area, and then in addition to that, other areas like health and transit.
Yeah, so that would tie right into all of the issues that you would be concerned as
yes, very conveniently
as an elected official, right?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, there certainly are very strong ties between the work that I've done in the community, and it's in the midst of that work that I've built the relationships in Brooklyn Park, in the faith community, and the immigrant community, and in neighboring communities as well, and why many people came to me initially and asked me to run for mayor, and worked for a long time to get me to agree to run for mayor, because it's tough, as I'm sure you know. It's very difficult to do, but after many people have asked me to do it, and after I've built a lot of relationships in the community, it was a decision that was relatively easy to make, and fortunately have had even more and more people come up and stand with me and support me in the year that I've been out campaigning.
And then can you tell us a little bit about what you're hearing from people as you knock on their doors?
Yeah, absolutely, and lots of things. Some of the things that I've already talked about, but one of the more resounding messages that I hear from people is really about our taxes as a city, and recognizing that I'm more than prepared to pay my fair share of taxes. Got no problem with it. Do it every year and do it gladly because I have the ability to own my own home. But wanting to make sure, as the voices that I'm hearing at the doors, individuals wanting to make sure that the taxes that they're paying are in pace with the level of amenities that they get as residents of Brooklyn Park, and many feeling that that's not the case. There are many voters who struggle with the tax breaks that we give to corporations to come to Brooklyn Park. We're happy that they're here. I'm very happy that the corporations are here because they really are quite a jewel in the crown of Brooklyn Park, but also wanting to make sure that when they're coming, that as a city, we're doing an effective job of holding them accountable for the promises that they make. And that's not something that we've done. And there's many homeowners and taxpayers who are kind of crying foul with that. I would say in addition to that, we're seeing, if you go through Brooklyn Park from the south end to the north end, you can almost feel as though you're moving through 3 or 4 different communities because it's so very different. There's the older part on the south end, the newer part on the north end, and in the midst of that, people really feeling that divide and that disconnect and wanting to feel more close-knit together, wanting to feel as though just because I live on the south end doesn't mean that my parks, for instance, should be any less than a park that's on the north end of the city. Wanting to feel as though we're having the same level of investment on the south end of Brooklyn Park as we are on the north end of Brooklyn Park. So those are just a few of the stories that I'm hearing at the door. But fundamentally, I think across all of them, it's really about having government that has a sort of bold leadership, that understands who lives in Brooklyn Park today and is governing based on who lives in Brooklyn Park today, but also casting the sort of vision and moving towards the sort of vision that makes Brooklyn Park the type of city that we can be, with the type of identity that we can have as the 6th largest in the state.
And then for you to give the people out in Brooklyn Park why they should vote for you come election day and they go into the voting booth.
I think one of the biggest reasons to vote for me is because Brooklyn Park, we can continue to lead Brooklyn Park in the way that we always have, which is what we've done. We can maintain the status quo and kind of inch along, or we can actually live up to our status as the 6th largest city. And I have a bold vision for what that looks like, and not just ideas, but actually experience, having brought together the sort of people in the community that can actually make that happen. I have nearly 20 years of professional experience doing much that same work in the corporate world and in the nonprofit and government world as well. So I have the relationships, I have the level of education, and I have the sorts of experiences that help equip me to move Brooklyn Park forward into the places where we truly can be instead of inching along.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to share your thoughts and ideas with our audience out there. And then we'll encourage those of you out there, be sure to go in and on November 4th, vote, and particularly take the time to find out who's running in your city and some of the thoughts and ideas that they have, and know who you're voting for, because the city offices are the ones that are closest to you, and they probably affect you the most of any. We're glad that you've joined us, and we hope you'll join us again next week. Bye.